I just got whistled at. Some things are just... Yes, please. All right. Mark chapter 5 is where we are going. Another miracle that Jesus performs, something that, the way that things are done just are unique, and how people take it. So that's what we're going to be going into tonight. And it definitely shows us that Jesus has more power than any other. So Mark chapter 5, starting in verse 1, it says, "And they came over unto the other side of the sea, into the country of Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces, neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. A very disturbed man that Jesus has been confronted with, and can't wait to, I know we all probably know how this goes, but it's always interesting to see how Jesus is going to be, who he's going to be confronted by, and then how he's going to take that confrontation, and what he can do with that. So, the first part there, in verses 1 through 5, we see that it was a man controlled by darkness. There is a lot going on with that man inside of his mind, inside of his body. I don't want to say more than what I need to say tonight. So, his condition, he was possessed by an unclean spirit. He was living among the tombs. People don't usually do that, obviously. He was isolated from society. When you are completely insane, no one wants to be around you. He was crying and cutting himself. He was bound physically and spiritually. Again, not only did he have a lot going on the outside of his body, but also on the inside of his body. It kind of reminds me of, who's that one on Andy Griffith? The nutso one, Terry? Yeah, Ernest T. Bass. Right, Terry? Yeah. I don't know. I think he's a lot worse than Ernest T. Bass, but those times that Ernest is in going nuts. Anyway, I've been watching Andy a little bit. So, do what? Oh, yeah. So, but we see, though, that there's a progression of sin and the bondage that it talks about there. There's a sin. The sin isolated the man. Again, this is sin. This is what sin brings into our lives, and it isolated the man. It destroyed his life. It destroyed anything that he knew. It humiliated him, especially with all the things that, number one, people not wanting to be around you. Number two, you just aren't fit to be around other people. Not only that, but sin enslaves you. People tried to put chains and fetters on him, just kept trying to keep him contained. But one thing we can see with sin always promises freedom, but produces chains. Sin always promises freedom, but it brings chains along with it. So, John chapter 10, verse 10, it says, "The thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy." Talking about the same thing there. We can also look at that as being trapped in addictions and destructive habits that people have in their lives. Sometimes with that, families give up. There's society labels them as unfit, can't contain them, certain ways like that. But yet we're going to see how Jesus views him. So let's continue on in verse 6. It says, "But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. For he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit." Now notice this is not the normal kind of worshiping. It is something that, it is an example of what normally people would do whenever they see Jesus, what we will do whenever we see him. They will bow down before him. That's just a regular recognition. But what has to happen here is people who have things that have known Jesus before. Not many people necessarily knew him, especially around the area. They didn't always know who he was, but a lot of times many people didn't accept him as the Son of the Most High God. Many people just wanted to kill him for claiming that he is the Son of God. So this man comes to him and cries with a loud voice and declares who he is and bows before him. So verse 9, it says, "And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many." So Jesus obviously knows he's not just talking to the man. He's talking to the demons that have possessed him. Even the demons know Christ's authority. They know his authority, his identity, and they also know his power. Look at what they actually said to him. "What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God?" It is what happens when one is Christ, or when one is like him. The darkness does not want to be around that light that is there. They called him, "Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God." People on earth didn't know that. They were told that, but hardly any of them accepted it. Let's continue to read on in verse 10. "And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. For there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding. And all the devils besought him, saying, Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave, and the unclean spirit went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. There they were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea." That's a normal reaction whenever you're demon possessed. But the demons were powerful, but they were powerless before Christ. They knew whenever they saw Christ what was going to happen. They knew that his power was too strong for them to even stand against. So they ran to him before him and said, What are you doing here? What have we done to upset you to bring you here? Basically, they told on themselves. But he said, Come out of that man, thou unclean spirit. Again, they say their name is Legion, for we are many. A legion could refer to thousands of soldiers, and this man was deeply, deeply tormented. There are times whenever things bother us, but can you imagine 2,000 voices and things going on inside your head? No wonder why he was nuts. But no matter what had happened to that man, in the bondage of the sin, of the bondage that Satan, the crushing thought that Satan has on that man through the demon possession, it was not strong. It was not strong enough for Christ. So what we see though through that is no life is too far gone. Again, everyone else had just given up on this man. Everyone else just said, he's nuts, let's just leave him alone and let him die all alone. Who cares what else happens? Let's just leave him alone. But Jesus saw more than that. He saw that this man was not himself, I guess is a way you can say it. Verse 14, and they that fed the swine fled and told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that was done. Again, they didn't want to go back into humans, but they wanted to go into swine. Again, I kind of made a little lighthearted about it, but that's a normal reaction that people or creation should have to demon possession. Running off a cliff, you're going nuts. So, anyway, I in my own mind I thought it was... Anyway, so people saw that in verse 14. Verse 15, it says, and they came to Jesus, and they come to Jesus and see him that was possessed with the devil and had the legion, sitting and clothed, and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Yet once again, may I bring your attention to Ernest T. Bass. Oh, Andy Griffith thought he was going to try his best to tame Ernest T. Bass. I'm sorry I'm referring to that, but I just watched that one. But no one could tame that man, but Jesus did. Jesus took that man and changed his life completely. He was once this person that was bound in chains and fetters and bound in something he could not get himself out of. No one else could get him out of it. Strong picture of us before we found Christ. We are bound to our sin. We are slaves to the sin. We are slave to Satan, and whatever he wants, he just kind of plays around with us and does whatever he wants. But as soon as a person that has never trusted Christ has the opportunity to see the true God himself, Christ, and truly see him, there's a reaction that will grab their attention. So this man was different. He was hated. No one liked him. Not only that, but along with the thought of salvation, no one could save that man. He couldn't save himself. He did things to get the chains off. He just did things just to kind of, in a way, try to be free on his own, but he could not do that. There was only one that could do that. So what changed? The man was, number one, he was sitting. He was sitting there. Not only that, but he was clothed. Before that, you saw that he was running around rampant, crazy. No one could hold him. And then not only that, he was clothed. He was not clothed before, obviously. And he was also in his right mind, as it says there in verse 15. He was in his right mind. So we see before Jesus, this man's life, he was wild. He was naked. He was broken. He was hopeless. Same way with those that do not know him. They are hopeless. There is nothing for them. They're wild. They're broken. They're without hope. But after Jesus, we see that there's a difference. And this is why we should, and we preach the fact that there should be a difference in someone's life whenever Christ comes into their life. Because what we see here that Jesus is doing is the same thing that he does for us whenever he saves us. He takes us from that bondage, he takes us from that and completely changes us. And if there is not a complete change in someone after they get saved, then there probably wasn't a transformation. After someone meets Jesus and accepts him, there is a change in them. After Jesus came into that man's life, he was peaceful. He wasn't distraught. He wasn't causing problems among other people. He was restored back to who he should have been like, what he should have been like. He was changed. When a person gets saved, they are restored. They are peaceful. They are changed in a great way. Not only that, but they're no longer mixed up. They're a whole person because now they are made whole through Christ. One thing you can see, though, about the gospel of Christ is it changes people. And to those that are saved, you know exactly what we mean by that. The gospel changes people. Christ changes people whenever they come in, when he comes into their life. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 says, "Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new." When Christ comes into the life, we are made new. You are no longer that old creature. So how do we have examples of what a Christian, a new Christian should be like, what changes should go on inside of a person's life? We see it multiple times in the Bible. Not only that, but you should have a living testimony of how Christ has changed your life. You see, Jesus does not just merely improve lives, He transforms them. Because if He just changed their life or improved their life, is what I wanted to say, it means that the old stuff is still there. You've got to transform it. You can't keep the old stuff there. It's got to be passed away and let the new stuff come in. Behold, all things become new. Verse 16, it says, and they that saw it told them how it befell to him and was possessed and with the devil, and also concerning the swine. Again, when something like this happens, people could not stand that man. But yet you see this man that you couldn't stand, and all of a sudden this man comes in, and you hear about some weird things happening with pigs and things like that, and the correct response would be, oh my goodness, this is amazing, what has happened to this man? But that's not always the way it is with people, especially whenever you get into the Pharisees and sadly people who claim that they are Christ. And if there is no celebration when one gets saved, then there is an issue. Verse 16, and they that saw it told them how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine, and then began to pray him to depart out of their coasts. Instead of celebrating and rejoicing for what had happened, they couldn't stand it. They said, we don't want any of that here. They asked him to leave. Why? Why did they ask him to leave? Well, their economy was affected. Their comfort was disturbed. And they valued pigs over a person. You can safely say that the people would rather have seen the pigs live than that man being nuts, if they're all upset about it. People still reject Jesus, though. Especially whenever He interrupts their lifestyle. How many times have we seen that? People don't want, I've heard it from people, I don't want to trust the Lord. I don't want to get saved because, you see, that means my life would have to change. I don't like whenever I hear that. But when Christ comes into your life, it is going to change your life. But He interrupts their lifestyle. I enjoy the way I'm living my life. But yet, they don't truly see what their lifestyle is doing to them and what the long end is of that life. Another reason why people reject Christ is He confronts sin. Everyone else ran away from it. Same way with people still today. They see the sin and they say, oh, we just don't want to deal with it. We'll just kind of brush it off. Christ said, no, we're going to take care of this issue right now. We're going to face it head on and do what needs to be done to it. Many times in our lives, that's how we need to look at sin. We need to confront it instead of just brushing it off and hoping that someone else will take care of it, or hoping that it would just disappear. Not only that, but along with the pigs dying and things like that, following Christ, He becomes costly. Following Christ becomes costly. You lose friends. You lose things for a good reason. You see, even though God created everything, God created pigs, and no matter how many PETA people there are and things like that don't want people to kill the animals, He would rather save one soul than 2,000 pigs. That's the one who created us. So I don't think He minds. Anyway, that's just another little side note. But anyway, one soul mattered more to Jesus than 2,000 pigs. Verses 18 and following, it says, and when he was come into the ship, he had been possessed with the devil, prayed him that he might be with him. Howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but saith unto him, Go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. The delivered man wanted to go with Jesus. That's a typical reaction. When Christ saves you, you want to follow him. That's his initial reaction. Whenever Christ, the one who can change your life completely, and you truly see what he has done in your life and what he can do in your life, you just kind of want to know what else goes on along with this. But Jesus said something to him. Go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord had done for thee. He says, you have a testimony. I want you to be a witness to all the other people that did not get to see this. I want you to show them. I want you to be a witness to all those that you know. The man who once terrified the city now testified to the city. It's amazing how Christ can change a life. A nuisance to a blessing. But in that, we also see how powerful our own testimony can be. No matter what your testimony is very powerful, because the fact that Christ saved you is a powerful testimony in itself. Because you were like that man. You were like the one that was stuck in the sin. You were once the person who was bound to the sin and held in that and couldn't get your own way out, couldn't find your own way out. No one could stand it. So your testimony is powerful. What Christ has done for you is more powerful than anything. People may argue doctrine, but they cannot deny a changed life. It's amazing seeing what Christ can do for a person by changing their life. A few things that we can learn from this. Jesus goes where others will not go. And yet he tells us that we are to go ye therefore. Jesus helps those others cannot help. We know what Christ can do for others. We know what Christ can do to help others that other people do not want to be around. Jesus changes what others cannot change. He can change a life that other people have tried to change. And Jesus saves people others give up on. Even though some people may seem like a throwaway, Christ looked at them and had compassion on them. So, the things that, yes, I know it's something we probably heard many times, and you probably remember this story. Most likely, the legions about the pigs going over the cliff, and that's where I always remember it. I don't know about you. I like that part because it's just funny to me. But we see, though, that in that we see what Satan can do and what Satan promises, what his false promise is, and what Christ can do. Completely different. But yet, there's a testimony in that. There's a testimony in our lives that we need to share and be able to tell. And just like him, he could go out and tell people, he was excited about it. We need to be excited about what Christ has done for us. No matter how long ago it was that he saved you, it is still a very great miracle what he's done for you still today. So let's all stand, and we will close with the word of prayer tonight.